of Government Relations, Public Policy, and she is also a part of Operation Hope. Let's give her a hand as she comes up. And then we have a gentleman by the name of Eric Guthrie. And he is a partner. He is an attorney and a partner in a law firm called Cogent Law Group. He is the author of one of my favorite books. It's called Blockchain or Die. You know, I go hard or go home. And when I read that title, I was like, that's what's up. We either get educated or we die. But he has Blockchain or Die. And then he is, he's also the director of training at the Government Blockchain Association. And then we have Amber C. Smith, Esquire. So we have another attorney here who is the founder of her law offices of Attorney Amber C. Smith, PLLC. And we also have a professor, Professor Dale Wright of the University of Missouri in Kansas City. So let's welcome them all to the stage. All right. And as we sit here, I think we're good here. I'm going to go ahead and have a seat next to you. So this distinguished panel today is here to talk about and enlighten us in a discussion on the intricacies of blockchain regulation and what its impacts are on the Black community and Black-owned businesses and enterprises. And we'd like for you all to just really give us your input as to some of the things that you see coming, some of the things that you're involved in, and prayerfully we'll get through this and be able to really, at the end, make sure you let us know what projects you're working on and things of that sort. So we'll get into it. So first question, and I will leave this to anyone that would like to answer it. Which regulations do you think have the greatest impact on Black businesses and why right now? Which, yes.
Regulations.
Regulations.
Well, and a lot of what I'm going to say is in the Hoover app on articles and reports. According to the USGAO, the Government Administrative Organization that does reports on and audits for the federal government, they say there's no financial regulatory agency that has comprehensive authority to regulate this industry. So the answer is none of them.
None of them. All right. And so we definitely need clarity. We need...
The clarity is this space is so open that if the government has a unique regulator in the space, it's sort of like Wild Wild West. And can I just say, only at Howard University, the HU, we like Hampton too, but can we listen to a soundtrack of dead presidents and have them later at the end of this conference? I mean, I'm just saying, you have a...
Absolutely.
Let's give it up for dead presidents.
Absolutely.
Come on later.
And they're here, they did a sound check, so absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead, yes, sir. We would love to hear from you.
I was going to add, my wife is from Howard, so I'm honorary.
Wonderful.
But I think if you're talking about regulation, there is one regulator that makes sense to pay attention to, and that's the SEC, because every company needs to raise money. Like, first thing you have to do is raise money. And if you raise money wrong, you're offering a security to the public, and it's unregistered, which gives your investors a free right to basically bankrupt. So that is the first thing you need to think about is how am I raising money and how am I raising money in a responsible way so that these investors don't get a heads I win, tails you lose proposition. Heads I win, you're successful. Tails I lose, I get to get my money back because you offer me an unregistered security. That's something every Black business needs to deal with first because that's step one, making sure that you and your investors have a professional relationship.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And the beautiful Amber.
I I will just add, and first and foremost, thank you all so much for having me here and for this amazing summit. It's so important that we as a community are engaging around these topics, but more specifically in terms of some key financial regulations, right? We're looking at anti-money laundering, knowing your customer, right? There are lots of acronyms within the regulatory framework that you have to become familiar with. And so, those are two of the ones that specifically in this space, because blockchain technology is supposed to allow for you to preserve people's privacy, right, and protect data in a way that could expose you as it relates to, not being able to identify suspicious activity if you aren't really tracking who your customers are and things like that, depending on the platforms that you are that you're creating. So that's something to consider.
Absolutely. And Mr. Eric.
So I'm going to kind of bring it all together, but before I do, I want to ask everyone a question. By raising your hand, how many of you have a business, a LLC, a C Corp, a S Corp, where you're registered in the U.S.? Raise your hand. That's most of the audience, okay. So, panelists is correct. There is no specific law or regulation that relates directly to blockchain technology, but there are plenty of regulations that that they're using to regulate blockchain technology. And the SEC is probably the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Now, I asked you that question because there's a law that's passed that's going to be activated on January 1st called the Corporate Transparency Act. And that law is going to require, this goes to the KYC AML piece, that law is going to require anyone with a registered company in the States to register with FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, to make sure they know who you are, where you are, what your company is, and your tax ID number. Why does this matter to you? I'm glad you asked. Here it is. If you do not comply, it's a $500 per day fine. You don't comply. If you are found criminally liable, it's $10,000 or 2 years in prison. So if you register your company with the state before January 1st, 2024, you have 1 year to comply. If you register for your company after January 1st, 2024, you've got 30 days to comply. So Google it, look it up, talk to your attorney. By the way, none of what we say here is legal advice. This is our disclaimer, all right? For all lawyers gotta say it, I just said it, covering all the counsel on this panel. But talk to your lawyer about it, because you need to know if you have a LLC, C Corp, S Corp, or a DBA in various state, you need to know about this regulation.
But I think it's important to say why that's happening. The U.S. Treasury Department's FinCEN, where that is out of, is basically trying to protect the American consumer as well as the owner of any kind of financial fraud that could come out of this space. So it's actually a good thing that's coming down the pike, because it's trying to protect not just the person who has the company in this space, but also the consumer that may want to buy or sell around your product and service.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad, mind you. I'm just saying you should know about it, and then you should be in compliance. Because, I mean, to the KYC AML argument, you could have a crypto or blockchain product, or you could have a token that you register that could be used in an untoward way, unbeknownst to you, but it has to be tracked not only by your token, but also by your business identity, right? So they're covering both sides of the fence. So I encourage all of you to be in compliance, because who do you think? Our community is majority small businesses. So who's this impacting? Us.
Absolutely. And I know that you had something that you wanted to say, and then I want to share something personal about the FinCEN, but go ahead and let's hear from you.
Not to turn this into anything that it's not, but when you're talking about government regulation, asking for information, personal information, you're getting into the heart of what blockchain is about, which is freedom from government. And so that kind of regulation, and again, I won't pick a fight, it's not good, because the government shouldn't have too much information about us. That's the whole point of this wonderful thing that was created called Bitcoin, that says, if the government decides they want to take my money randomly, I have an option. I have my own sovereign wealth. The government can't just say, give me. But the more information they have, the more opportunity they have to take your stuff without due process of law. And they do it on occasion. I'm not saying they do it a lot, but they do it on occasion. And if the defendant gets reelected, they're going to do it more.
All right. And I would agree that the ethos of this entire space was exactly what he's stating. And we definitely live in a land where things are changing. And I'm just going to say this because I wasn't even intending to be the moderator on this panel and have this conversation like this, but I am FinCEN licensed. As I stated before the break, my husband and I own one of the only brick and mortar Bitcoin exchanges in the United States where you can still walk in and buy and sell crypto. And I got licensed with FinCEN. Initially, when I started, they wanted me to register with the SEC, and as a small business, it was very, very hard on me because, first of all, nobody really knows what you're talking about Bitcoin or anything like this, so you can't get the funding you needed. But I also had to have a SEC attorney on staff my first year, which cost me $10,000 a month, and it literally choked me out. But one of the things that we did as an exchange was we were never custody. So where the other exchanges made money, and I know I'll get back to how this relates to regulation. While the other exchanges are custody, they had the ability to take people's Bitcoin and do what they needed to do. As you see, all these collapses and they misappropriated things. We were always, buy your Bitcoin, we give it to you immediately. But we always comply with FinCEN. And so that required me to get names, addresses, blah, blah, blah. But we have not yet ever had to turn that information over to anybody. And so I just wanted to share that in that respect. I have it, and I'm not willingly doing it like Coinbase. Coinbase is turning that over immediately when you participate on their platform. But there are platforms that they required us to do FinCEN, but we haven't had to give up any of that information. And unless I have a subpoena, I'm not going to do that at all. On the flip side, recently in April of this year, I got a call from SEC that said that I had to register my exchange with the SEC. Well, I only sell Bitcoin on purpose. And so the fight was, I try to do SEC, and then the attorneys tell me I can't do SEC, I have to do CFTC, which is another regulatory body, and then they're telling me that I don't need to register because there's no law. And so that's why we're here having this conversation, but just a personal experience, I am ready for some clarity and for an agency because I'm every day wondering who's gonna come and arrest me because I haven't complied with this CFTC or SEC, and it's a back and forth, and they got me in the middle like a ping pong, and so that I just wanted to share that as we
all the financial federal regulatory agencies have now on their websites crypto assets resources. The biggest one, as everyone said here, is SEC. It's investor.gov, www.investor.gov. The CFTC, the OCC, FDIC, FRB, all of these have information and resources. I always like to try to come when I'm part of this. It's wonderful to be here again for the 6th annual one. The other agency I really want to promote is the CFPB. It's the Consumer Federal Agency started by President Barack Obama. Let's give it up for him for starting that. And it's the agency, it's important to know there's only been 2 federal agencies started in the last 2 decades, Homeland Security after 9/11, and due to the financial crisis in 2008, they started the CFPB. And so the CFPB has really been there to help the American consumer beware of challenges that you may have. It's an interesting statistic. Again, I put it on Hoover. 85% of people between the ages of 18 to 29 have used the P2P platform, Cash App, Venmo. That's saying a lot because that's telling you that the future generations that will be in charge of our Social Security if we have it, or just our economy as we know it, this is their #1 financial platform. So the federal government has no other choice if they're seeing that 85% of young people are using this as their number one form of financial transactions.
Okay, absolutely. You know, I think it's worth noting that there are a lot of challenges that are going to come along with compliance. And so as attorneys and professors and those that are really in this space and really see what's going on, what do you see the challenges? And I know he talked about, you know, the private data and the data privacy. What do you see as like the biggest challenges that we're going to face?
So I think one of the biggest is education and knowing who to file with. Exactly what you were saying, Asha. Who to file with, how to file, and realizing that you need to have the money to pay an attorney to do so. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they've raised, 5, 6, 7 figures. And when I tell them, well, you have to file with the SEC, with the Commodities Futures Exchange Commission, maybe with FinCEN, and I say this is how much it's going to cost, they say, well, whoa, that's a lot of money.
How much does that cost? Just tell us.
It depends. It depends on the complexity of your token, if you have a token. It depends on the complexity of your company.
So I'm just saying for the audience, because I know, because I've been dealing with it, but approximately how much does it cost?
I mean, just with the SEC alone, it could be anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. But if you just raise $600,000, that's a drop in the bucket for compliance, right? So, and I've had that happen. I've had that happen where they've raised $500,000 or more, and I say, well, I mean, you can go for an SEC exemption letter, which is less complicated and it's less affordable. I mean, it's more affordable. But the bottom line is you have to put aside money for your legal issues because you're going to have to be able to proactively deal with them. It's much more expensive to deal with them later than to deal with them proactively. And if you want proof of that, ask Ripple. Because Ripple did not file with the SEC and they're spending millions of dollars in their court case in the Southern District of New York. Now, they kind of won half, lost half, but they spent a lot of money. If they had just registered, they wouldn't have had to spend all that money in legal fees.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on Ripple, but we don't have time for that. I will say one of the things that if people should really think about is we're moving to a digital cash economy where privacy is going to become more of an issue because the government is going to introduce a central bank digital currency probably within the next 10 years. That means those paper dollars we use, we won't be using. We'll be scanning our phones, and if you've ever spent time in China, that's how they spend their money. Everybody scans. Well, that means the government knows where you spend every last dollar, which means USDC and Tether are going to become more important because they're the way that you can maintain your privacy. And when you hear about, well, Coinbase is going to tell about all your Tether, they're trying to backdoor that information about your privacy. And so people who are understanding the privacy space, entrepreneurs in the privacy space, are going to have opportunities because, and just, I want you all to think about, if all your wealth were in Tether or USDC, do you need a bank? And if you don't need a bank, what happens to that industry? Right? Something to think about. It's coming. It's coming soon. Get in front of the bus or get run over by.
And to that, I would like to say, because we have a lot of conversations about privacy, security, and I have a lot of people that try to come into our business that do not want a KYC. For whatever reason, again, that was the beginning ethos of this whole thing. But I have to start to think about every other thing that we do that ties our wallets and or our cryptocurrency to us, specifically our cell phones. When you go to get a cell phone, you give them your name, your social, your address, you do all those things. And so that being said, I've watched recently where there's some programs and some things that are in place where even the wallets that are pinged off, and I'm not talking about all the way decentralized wallets, but they're able to really identify people anyway. So us really bucking against the system to have no type of KYC done or anything like that, I think is already a loss, because I just think that there's so many things that we've already done to put our data in their face and in their space. But you're absolutely right. Central bank digital currencies is going to nail the coffin when it comes, and it's coming. No matter what, it's coming. Now, they may be saying that they're pushing back a little bit, but it's coming. So once I want to ask, and you're not providing any legal advice, what do you feel as an attorney that we all should be doing as this full digital space is ushered in, and as government officials, and what should we be doing as a community to get ready for what is coming forward, to still protect our data if we need to or want to? What can we do?
I see some hands raised as well, so I'm not sure if we're accepting questions, but I definitely know that we want to make sure we're engaging with the audience around these different things. So please, make sure to participate in that way. But I would say, and this kind of also builds upon the last question, right, in terms of what are some of the biggest challenges. Many of my clients are creative entrepreneurs, startups, grant-funded nonprofits across industries that are looking to, incorporate blockchain technology into the work that they're doing in different spaces. And so I think that, access to capital is an issue that Black businesses, small Black businesses, are acutely impacted by. And so when we're talking about getting into this space and having to create a culture of compliance, we've got some folks here from regulatory agencies, that is what they're being encouraged to do in these spaces. It's very expensive. It's very expensive, right? We talked about $30,000 to $50,000 to comply if you're directly involved in exchanging cryptocurrency and things of that nature. But again, even just for other industries that are looking to move in this direction, it's something that you have to see as an investment, right? But you're investing limited resources. So I think it's just, being aware that, it is going to require you to get creative in terms of fundraising, and you really do have to see that as that's essential. It's not something that can be an afterthought. You really have to make sure that you're incorporating that into your business model. Having, an entire department dedicated, an SEC attorney like you had, right? If that is something that you want to do, and just really making sure that you're prepared in that way.
Thank you for that. And
Real briefly, I'll add on to what counsel said. First is educate yourself. Take the training, whatever you need to do, whether it's on YouTube or social media or reading blogs or articles. Even in the legal space, there's a lot of articles about, what you should be doing as companies if you have security tokens, reward tokens, if your wallet is accessible, domestically, internationally, et cetera, right? And the other is find an attorney that has experience in this space. Not just any old attorney, not your cousin, not your uncle. Find someone that has experience in this space, because they need to know all the issues that need to be addressed to properly represent you in these issues. Now, quite frankly, that's harder to do than it is, because very few attorneys have the type of experience you need, but they are out there. We are up here, right? So they're out there, and there's parts of many organizations, not just Black Blockchain Summit, but other organizations that know about these attorneys. Join organizations, get to know who the attorneys are, start to ask some questions. You probably get your free 30-minute consultation, and then you can go from there on what it looks like to be, represented by them. But, go in with knowledge, don't go in without knowledge.
We had a couple of people who had raised their hands. Can we get
we
to
did
at
have a
least
couple
one
of
the
hands, but Jenna, did you have something that you wanted to close out with?
I want to say that I love this forum. 6 years of them doing it. I've met some incredible companies. I just met over lunch, Cool Crypto Convo, Whoop Whoop, and then I'm on the advisory board of UMI, which is highlighted on the Hoover as well. And I've met UMI here, and financial education, financial literacy has been a big issue by a lot of the products of people who are exhibiting here. I applaud that, because it's all about financial inclusiveness, financial education, protecting the consumer in this new kind of space. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you. And Professor Wright.
I just have one thing. Be extremely disciplined about your privacy and security. Don't make it an afterthought, make it a primary thought. That is what you need to do as a business going forward.
All right, and we have time for one question. Okay.
Hey, you came to me first. He was first. Okay. So I came across, I've been researching a project, Project New Dawn. I don't know if anybody heard about that. Because you have the FedNow that came out, and then they said they're fighting, like they're battling over the CBDCs. But if you have FedNow, then you have Project New Dawn that's going to pass out incentives for people to use CBDCs. Then they're going to focus on the poor, minorities, people that can't have bank accounts, people that I guess don't have a social security number, but they're going to roll out like incentives like they did with COVID to get people into FedNow. So from my understanding, the economy is going to crash, which it's doing now. You're going to lose jobs. Then people are going to need money. That's when they'll pass out the incentives to roll people into the CBDCs.
So let me make a little bit of clarity really quickly. And I know we have, and we have another educator right here. This is one of my business partners, which I didn't bypass you on purpose. I didn't know your hand was up. So the sister asked about the FedNow program. You know, I like to explain FedNow as a railway. It's not an actual coin, right, but it's a railway. So right now, FedNow is laying the railroad tracks. CBDC is the train that it is going to be able to travel on. So right now, they're just laying just the basics. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing. CBDCs are absolutely not something that I want to ever participate in. However, I'm just I want to make sure that the audience is clear that FedNow is not a coin. But I know a lot of people don't. So let me just, Ryan, go ahead.
I have two pushes. One, it was a statement made, and I'm not sure if I missed it, but I think a lot more focus has to be on Congress. It is their role to legislate, and they've completely failed in doing so. So the whole move to just register with the SEC, who has unclear all of those pieces, is one thing. But the second piece is, I heard about USDC Tether. To me, there's no true distinction between that and a CBDC, especially if you're running on ETH, which is OFAC compliant base layer. So I don't need to know all of the moves that you make if I can then censor transactions. And that is the key piece, right? You need something that is censorship resistant, because I don't need to track you if I can just shut down your money, which can happen both ways. And we already see the banking on the back end. JP Morgan basically has a stake in Infura as well as Consensus, and that's where the true issue is. So even if you're using those other mediums, if they can be controlled, which they have been, right, and MetaMask and some other things has stopped transactions from being processed for certain geographic regions, we're all in the same place. What's the difference from me saying that these transactions can't happen not only in this particular zip code, right? So that would be my only push. You actually need something that is not only going to be self-sovereign, but in that regard, it has to be censorship resistant. And if you have an OFAC compliant base layer and they can sanction transactions, we're back at the same place, whether it's a CBDC or something running on some other system.
Well said, well said. All right. Well, I am, did one of you all want to respond? Because I know I am out of line, because she gave me a minute mark 5 minutes ago.
One thing I will add, it was very hard to understand that with the echo we have. Like, I don't know how many of you followed that, but.
Okay, so
The
they didn't get
only
any
thing
of
I
that.
got was about Tether being similar to USD or the same as USDC. See exactly. So we couldn't hear you.
Okay, so let's do this. We're going to have to continue because we want to keep the flow of the conference going. And I appreciate the conversation. And I would like for you all to give these individuals a hand because we are definitely over our time.